Welcome to The Explainer. Today is June 21st, 2026, and wow, do we have a fascinating piece of source material to unpack together. We're looking at a paper by Ryan McLean titled God the Father, a Christological Preservation Proof. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Theological papers can be, well, a bit dense, right? The kind that might put you right to sleep. But actually, scratch that. This one is entirely different. It's uniquely structured. It literally reads like a Sherlock Holmes deductive mystery. The author takes the ultimate question, the true identity of God, and applies these incredibly strict logical rules of evidence to it. It's a super intriguing approach, and we are going to walk through the exact mechanics of this proof step by step.
To kick off our detective story, we really have to set the scene of the mystery. Humanity has this ancient, deeply rooted desire to encounter God, sure, but there's also a profound fear of it. Think back to the story of Adam in the Garden of Eden after the fall. His absolute first instinct? He hides. It perfectly captures the human condition, doesn't it? We desperately want to know our Creator, but at the exact same time, we're terrified of standing totally exposed before the ultimate identity. So here is our roadmap for the investigation today. We'll start with the search for God, move on to the answer key, tackle the preservation principle, build out our clue board, and then finally put it all through the unique conjunction test.
Section 1. The search for God. Humanity's ancient longing.
Okay, let's dive into this. The author brings us right back to that incredible scene in Genesis where Adam says, "I heard the sound of thee in the garden, and I hid myself." This quote perfectly grounds the history of humanity trying to figure out how on earth to stand before God. Because for thousands of years, people haven't just wanted some abstract theory about a creator. No way. They've wanted a concrete encounter, constantly asking, where is God and how do we actually know him? Which brings us to section 2, the answer key. Jesus as the revelation. Now, what's really interesting here is how the author treats this specific verse from the Gospel of John where Jesus says, "Whoever has seen me has seen the Father." In the context of this proof, the author treats this as the literal answer key to the whole investigation. The argument is that we aren't supposed to just guess what God looks like by dreaming up some blurry, abstract idea in our heads. Instead, we are supposed to use the concrete, real-world clues provided directly by the Son. Section 3. The preservation principle. The rules of evidence. Okay, this brings us to the absolute core mechanic of the paper, the Christological preservation principle. I know it sounds a little dense, but the author includes a fantastic analogy called Angela's Explainer to translate it into plain everyday language. It simply means don't throw away the clues. If Jesus shows us the Father by living a real flesh and blood historical life, we don't get to just toss out the parts of his life that make us uncomfortable. We must preserve every single clue, his body, his family, his actions, unless the text explicitly gives us a principled reason to remove it. Basically, absolutely no sweeping clues under the rug. Moving right along to section 4, building the clue board, mapping the traits. Since we can't throw away evidence, the author argues that we have to gather all these specific historical and moral traits to form a recognizable pattern. Imagine a real detective's clue board. We've got historical realities like parentage, family relations, and Jewish identity, including covenantal signs like circumcision. Then we have moral traits, right? Habitual prayer, fasting, and this profound, radical standard of mercy and forgiveness. But we also have suffering, things like rejection, false witness, and unbroken bones. And finally, a strict stewardship of received truth, meaning not claiming to invent the truth, but rather passing it on. The author argues this forms our complete set of evidence. But wait, how do we actually test this evidence? Well, checking these specific fruits and works isn't just some arbitrary thing. The author points out that it's the exact inspection policy authorized by the text itself. Jesus literally gives a recognition rule. You will know them by their fruits. This means that examining the outward pattern of someone's life, their actions, and the consequences of those actions is the officially authorized way to recognize the underlying reality. And this brilliantly illustrates how true recognition actually works in the text. Think about Adam recognizing Eve, saying, "This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh." You see, true recognition doesn't happen as some abstract mathematical theory. It is a real, concrete encounter. It's all about identifying a unique, cumulative pattern standing right in front of you, much like Adam recognizing the pattern of his own humanity in Eve. Which leads us to section 5, the unique conjunction test. The verdict. Before we drop the gavel, the author introduces something called the teleological bridge theorem. Let's translate that into plain English, shall we? It means revelation isn't some cosmic game of hide and seek. If God leaves a pattern of clues, that pattern is meant to be successfully found and identified. The clues have a specific job to do. They are fundamentally ordered toward actual, successful recognition.
So the crucial point is the difference between mere resemblance and true identification. If someone shares just one or two clues from our investigation, say they pray and they fast, well, that's just resemblance. It's an analogy. I mean, wearing a trench coat doesn't make you a real detective, right? But if a life uniquely satisfies the complete pattern, literally every single clue aligning uniquely, that moves way beyond resemblance. That solves the mystery. That is true identification.
So, here is the author's formal logical deduction laid out step by step. Step 1. Revelation preserves a recognizable pattern. That's our whole clue board. Step 2. That revelation is ordered toward actual recognition, meaning it's meant to be found. Step 3. A specific life uniquely instantiates this complete, massive pattern of clues. And step 4. If those first 3 are true, then that unique life logically identifies the referent of the revelation. It's a purely conditional, logical framework. If the premises stand, the conclusion absolutely follows. Let's see how this builds, because the author doesn't just demand blind agreement here. They actually invite rigorous testing by providing a strict list of failure conditions. If you want to debunk this proof, you can't just offer some vague disagreement or say it makes you uncomfortable. No, you have to point to a broken piece of logic from these failure conditions. You have to prove a premise is false, find a flaw in the formal logic, find a scriptural reason to throw away a clue, identify contradictory bad fruit, or provide a real-world counterexample that meets the entire conjunction of those clues. Well, we've reached the end of our clue board. We've walked through the preservation of evidence, the building of the pattern, and the incredibly strict conditions for testing it. So, I leave you with the ultimate question posed by the author's deductive proof. If these preserved revelatory clues align completely and uniquely in history, does this pattern truly identify the Father? I highly encourage you to ponder the mechanics of the proof we just explored. It certainly leaves you thinking about the massive, real-world implications of such an ultimate investigation, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the clues.